I stared out the window at the lively scene outside, my family's annual barbecue. Kids chased each other around the yard, laughing and screaming, while adults clustered in groups, talking animatedly. I was supposed to be out there, mingling, enjoying myself. Instead, I felt a heaviness, an invisible chain holding me back. "Hey, Eve, you good?" My cousin Jess called from the doorway, her face scrunched with concern. "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. Jess raised an eyebrow, but didn't push it. Inside, I felt every bit of my 32 years. Years spent battling my weight and self-esteem. I had always been the quiet girl, overweight but gifted in writing. I didn't fit in with the cheerleaders or the drama club. Back then, I dissolved into my stories where the heroines were always confident and beautiful, unlike the girl I saw in the mirror. Adam and I had been the talk of the town when we married. He was charming, handsome, and outgoing, everything I wasn't. People said we balanced each other out, but in reality he was just manipulative. Yet I held on, believing marriage was forever. Jess's voice snapped me back. "Come out when you're ready," she said softly before leaving. Minutes ticked by as I listened to the hum of happy conversations from outside. Finally, I sighed, squaring my shoulders. Enough hiding. As I walked out, I saw Jess entertaining the family with one of her jokes. I caught sight of Adam across the yard. Even from here, I could see the disinterest on his face, a stark contrast to his usual charm. He was engaged in a half-hearted chat with Uncle George, nodding mechanically. I approached, our eyes meeting for a brief, uncomfortable moment before he turned his attention back to George. Shadows of our once-perfect relationship haunted me. Later that evening, after everyone had left and the house was eerily quiet, Adam and I stood in the kitchen tidying up. "Adam," I started, unable to keep the tremor out of my voice. "What is it?" He replied without looking up, rinsing off a plate. "Can we talk?" He finally turned to face me, a mix of irritation and boredom etched on his features. "Sure. What now?" This was it. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "Adam, what's been going on with us? You've been so distant." He chuckled, but it was devoid of warmth. "Oh, now you notice?" "Of course, I notice," I snapped. "I'm your wife, remember?" He sighed dramatically, drying his hands before looking me in the eyes. "Evelyn, you disgust me." The words hit like a punch to the gut. What are you saying? I'm done with this charade. There's someone else, someone worth my time, my effort. I'm leaving." He dropped the dish towel on the counter, the finality in his voice slicing through me. I stared at him, unable to form words. Memories of our life together flashed in my mind. Our wedding day, the night spent dreaming about our future, the promises. "Raise our child alone if you must," he added, his voice filled with disdain. "But I'm done." With that, he walked away, the echo of the door closing behind him reverberating through the hollow silence of the house. Tears welled up, but amidst the betrayal, a steely resolve began to form. I never imagined betrayal from the man I once called my husband. Why did it come to this? Reeling from the shock, I realized I could either wallow in despair or rise above. I clenched my fists. For me and my unborn child, I chose to rise. Back then, it had seemed perfect, almost idyllic. Adam was everything I thought I wanted. He was charismatic and flattering, especially in those early days. I could hardly believe it when he started showing interest in me. We met in a coffee shop where I spent afternoons writing. He was a regular, always with a kind word and a smile. One day, he just sat down across from me. "Mind if I join you?" I looked up from my laptop, surprised. "Oh, sure. I've noticed you here a lot. What are you working on?" "Evelyn, right?" he added before I could respond. My cheeks flushed. "Yes, Evelyn, and you are?" "Adam," he extended his hand, his eyes twinkling. "So, Evelyn, what's this masterpiece you're crafting?" "It's just a story," I muttered, feeling embarrassed. We talked for hours that day. He seemed genuinely interested in everything I said. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. And then his courtship began. Attentive, generous, and seemingly perfect. At our wedding, he held my hands and gazed into my eyes. "I promise to love and cherish you forever," he had said. I believed him. But the cracks were visible even then. They started small, like a tiny tear in fabric. I noticed his tendency to belittle small accomplishments. "You wrote another story today? That's cute, Eve, but when are you going to write something that matters?" His words stung, but I brushed them off. I was desperate to hold on to the dream. As the years passed, his charm turned sour. I remember one dinner party vividly. I had worked hard to prepare everything perfectly, eager to impress his colleagues. "Is the meat undercooked, or is it just me?" he teased in front of everyone. Laughter echoed around the table, but inside I crumbled. One night, about a year into our marriage, I confronted him. "Adam, why do you keep belittling me in front of others?" His eyes narrowed, and a cruel smile played at his lips. "Oh, come on, Evelyn. Stop being so sensitive. It's just a joke." "But it hurts," I insisted. He sighed, exasperated. "Fine, I'll try to be nicer. Happy now?" I nodded, but I knew deep down it wasn't over. Things took a darker turn when Melanie entered our lives. She was Adam's childhood friend, and her arrival was anything but subtle. She'd show up unannounced, a bottle of wine in hand, laughing too loudly, her eyes lingering on Adam a little too long. One evening, Melanie was over again. They were chatting in the living room while I busied myself in the kitchen. I could hear their laughter, and it made my skin crawl. After she left, I turned to Adam. "Why is Melanie here all the time?" He rolled his eyes. "She's my friend, Eve. Don't be so paranoid. Or are you just jealous?" "Jealous? No, but it's odd," I stated, folding my arms. "Believe what you want," he said dismissively. That's when I started seeing the full picture. Adam's attentiveness, his charm, it was all a charade. But now he had slipped, revealing the manipulative man he truly was. The final blow came one night when I overheard their whispered conversation. Hidden behind the door, my heart pounded in my chest as I listened. "She doesn't suspect a thing." Adam's voice was low and conspiratorial. "We'll be rid of her soon, Adam," Melanie replied, her tone sickeningly sweet. I burst in, unable to hold back. "What are you planning?" Adam's expression turned cold. "Oh, Evelyn, you really should learn when to keep quiet." The mask was off. He no longer hid his disdain. In that moment, standing in our living room, I realized the magnitude of his betrayal. He had never believed in me, never loved me. It was all a lie. And now I knew it was up to me to find the strength to face what was coming next. I stared at Melanie as she made herself comfortable on my couch. It was another unannounced visit. She fluttered around my living room, her energy filling the space like an unwelcome storm. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that accompanied her presence. "So, Evelyn," Melanie began, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "how are things going with the baby? I hope Adam's helping out more." I forced a smile. "Things are fine, Melanie. Thanks for asking." Adam strolled in just then, a broad grin plastered on his face. "Hey, Mel. Great to see you again." I watched as they exchanged a look that made my stomach churn. My discomfort grew with each passing second. "Adam, can I talk to you in the kitchen for a moment?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed but followed me. As soon as we were out of Melanie's earshot, I confronted him. "Adam, why is Melanie here all the time?" "She's just a friend, Evelyn," he said nonchalantly. "Why do you always assume the worst?" "Because she's overstepping," I replied, struggling to keep my voice low. "Just look at the way she's making herself at home." Adam rolled his eyes. "You're being paranoid. I invited her over. It's no big deal." "No big deal?" I echoed, feeling a surge of anger. "This is my home too, Adam." "Whatever, Evelyn." "Get over it," he said dismissively before walking back to the living room, leaving me standing alone, heart pounding with frustration. I returned to find Melanie giggling at something Adam had said. "Oh, Evelyn, you're back. We were just talking about the old days," she said, her eyes twinkling mischievously. I sat down, trying to maintain some composure. "That's nice." The evening dragged on, my unease growing with each passing minute. Finally, Melanie stood up, stretching like she owned the place. "Well, I should get going," she said, glancing at Adam. "Until next time." Adam walked her to the door, their laughter echoing through the hallway. As the door shut behind her, I turned to Adam with a determined look. "This needs to stop." He smirked. "You need to learn to relax. This jealousy is getting old." "It's not jealousy, Adam. It's about respect." "Respect?" he snorted. "You mean the respect you never earned?" I felt the sting of his words, but refused to back down. "You can't keep treating me like this. I can do whatever I want." He said coldly, "If you don't like it, you know where the door is." The finality of his words echoed in my mind long after he walked away. The next day, while Adam was at work, Melanie showed up again. "Hi, Evelyn. Just thought I'd drop by." Her intrusion made my blood boil. "Melanie, we need to talk." Sure, she said, flashing a Cheshire cat smile, settling on the couch like she owned it. Why are you here all the time? I demanded. Oh, Eve, no need to be hostile, she purred. Adam and I are just friends. I don't believe you. She leaned closer, her smile widening. You should. Or maybe you're just projecting your insecurities onto us. My fists clenched. This isn't about insecurity. It's about boundaries. Melanie's eyes sparkled with amusement. Well, if you can't keep your man happy, someone else will. That was it. Get out of my house, Melanie. She stood slowly, tauntingly. Sure thing, Evelyn. But remember, Adam invited me. After she left, I vowed to confront Adam again that evening. When he arrived home, I met him at the door. We need to talk. Now. Not this again, he groaned. Yes, this again, I snapped. Melanie won't stop unless you make her. He shrugged. Maybe she doesn't need to. I stared at him, stunned. His betrayal was now out in the open, ugly and undeniable. He wouldn't stop, and Melanie was more than willing to help him tear us apart. My path was clear. I had to reclaim my life, with or without him. I was in the kitchen, my hands trembling as I washed the dishes. Adam had just left for another meeting, the same lame excuse he'd been using for weeks. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. Suddenly, voices from the living room interrupted my thoughts. I quietly stepped closer, recognizing Adam's voice. He was talking to Melanie. You know this won't take long. Adam's voice was low, almost conspiratorial. Do you think she suspects anything? Melanie replied, her voice laced with fake innocence. I pressed myself against the wall, fighting the surge of anger. This was it. Their masks were finally coming off. She's clueless. Adam laughed cruelly. Evelyn's always been too trusting. She actually believes we're just friends. Melanie giggled, a sound that crawled under my skin. It's almost too easy. Once she's out of the picture, we can finally be together. No more sneaking around. My blood boiled, but I needed confirmation. I needed to hear the depth of their betrayal. I took a deep breath and stepped into the living room. Is that so? My voice cut through their conversation like a blade. Adam's head snapped around, eyes wide with shock. Evelyn, what are you doing? What am I doing? I echoed, stepping closer. What are you doing? Melanie's smirk faltered, but she quickly composed herself. Evelyn, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I spat. I heard everything. Adam's face transformed into a cold mask. So what, Evelyn? You think you can stop this? You think you can stop us? You're a fool if you think you can just walk away unscathed, I warned. Adam laughed, a harsh, grating sound. You're pathetic. Always were, always will be. You're nothing without me. I felt a mixture of anger and relief. This was the end of the facade. I'm done being your stepping stone, Adam. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. You can't leave, he said, his tone menacing. You're pregnant. Who do you think will want you now? Anyone would treat me better than you, I said, my voice steady. Melanie interjected, her tone laced with venom. Oh, Evelyn, do you really think you can manage everything alone? Adam and I, we have plans, big plans. You're just a loose end. I looked at them both, seeing clearly for the first time. You two deserve each other. Adam's eyes narrowed. Get out of my house, Evelyn. I took a step back, swallowing the lump in my throat. This is my house, too, but you won't have it for long. Turning on my heel, I marched towards the bedroom, the sense of resolve boiling inside me. I grabbed a suitcase and started packing, fueled by a mixture of rage and determination. Minutes later, as I zipped up the suitcase, Adam appeared in the doorway. You're really going to do this? Yes. I'm done, I replied, meeting his gaze head-on. He snorted. You'll come crawling back. Mark my words. Without another word, I pushed past him, dragging the suitcase towards the front door. I could hear Melanie's giggle echoing through the house, but I ignored it. My heart ached, but my spirit was unyielding. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit my face, providing a strange sense of freedom. I was leaving behind a toxic chapter of my life, ready to write a new one where I and my unborn child mattered. Adam and Melanie might think they'd won, but this was just the beginning. With one last look at the house that held so many broken promises, I vowed to reclaim my life, no matter what it took. They had no idea the strength I was capable of. I stood outside Marcus's apartment, clutching my suitcase with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. When I called Marcus, my old friend from college, and told him I needed a place to stay, he didn't hesitate. The door swung open, and there he stood, looking just as I remembered him, with a warm smile and kind eyes. Evelyn, he said, his voice soft but reassuring. Marcus, thank you for this, I managed, my voice breaking slightly. Come in, he said, taking the suitcase from me. You don't need to thank me. It's the least I can do. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of his apartment enveloped me. Marcus guided me to the living room, and I sank into the plush couch, feeling the weight of the recent events crashing down on me. So Adam finally showed his true colors, huh? Marcus asked, sitting across from me, his expression serious yet comforting. Yes, and it's worse than I imagined, I sighed. He's with Melanie, and they plan to get rid of me. Marcus clenched his jaw. You deserve so much better, Evelyn. Don't let them break you. I nodded, feeling a spark of determination. I won't. The next morning, I woke up early, ready to take the first step towards reclaiming my life. Marcus had already left for work, but he left a note on the kitchen table. Eve, remember you're stronger than you think. Call me if you need anything. Marcus. I smiled weakly at his words of encouragement. I had a busy day ahead. First stop, securing legal help. At the law office, I met with Rachel Sanders, a fierce and seasoned attorney. Her no-nonsense attitude and sharp intellect immediately put me at ease. Evelyn, I've reviewed your case, Rachel said, closing the file she'd been studying. We have a solid ground for divorce and custody. Adam's behavior is both deplorable and documented enough to swing this in your favor. And Melanie? I asked, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Rachel smirked slightly. We'll make sure she's seen for what she truly is. This will be a fight, but we can win. I left the office feeling a cautious optimism. Rachel's confidence was infectious. On the way home, I dialed my mother's number, something I hadn't done in ages. Mom, it's me, I said when she picked up. Evelyn, I've been so worried. Where are you? Her voice was filled with concern. I'm okay, I reassured her. I left Adam. Things were really bad. Oh, honey, she sighed. I never liked that man. You're doing the right thing. After hanging up, I felt a strange lightness. Slowly but surely, I was taking control. When Marcus came home, he found me at the kitchen table, papers spread out in front of me, rental listings, budget plans, all the first steps towards independence. Looks like someone's on a mission, he said, setting down his briefcase. I am, I said, meeting his gaze firmly. I'm getting my life back. Over the next few weeks, Marcus was a constant support, helping me find a new place, driving me to appointments, and just being there to listen when the weight of it all became too heavy. One night, we sat on his couch, a pizza box between us. You're incredible, Eve. After everything, you're not just surviving, you're fighting back, Marcus said, his admiration clear. Thanks to you, I replied, a warmth spreading through me. You've always had this strength, you know. It just took a jerk like Adam to bring it out, he said, his tone half joking but entirely sincere. In that moment, I realized something profound. I was shedding my old self, the one who felt small and insignificant. I was becoming someone stronger, driven not just by survival, but by the fierce need to protect my future. Adam and Melanie thought they could break me, but they were wrong. This was just the beginning of my new life, and I wouldn't stop until I had everything I deserved. I was combing through some of Adam's old files when something caught my eye. A document from his business labeled urgent. Curiosity piqued. I pulled it out and started reading. My heart raced as I realized what I was holding, evidence of financial trouble. That night, I met with Marcus. We spread the documents across the kitchen table, piecing together the puzzle. Adam's business is tanking, I said, astonished. Marcus nodded, scrutinizing a particularly damning report, and it looks like they've been hiding it well. Almost too well. What do you mean? I asked. He leaned back, fingers steepled under his chin. I think there's more to this. Look at these payments. They're shelling out a lot more than they should be. Fraud? I whispered, almost afraid to hope. Marcus nodded, eyes glinting. Could be. We need to dig deeper. If we can prove this, it could turn the divorce and custody case in your favor. Determined, we spent the next few days going over Adam's finances. Sure enough, Marcus's tech-savvy skills uncovered irregularities. It was clear Adam and Melanie were embezzling funds. Armed with the new information, I made an appointment with Rachel. Sitting across from her, I presented the findings. Rachel, look at this, I said, spreading out the evidence. Adam and Melanie are committing fraud. Rachel's eyes lit up as she sifted through the papers. Evelyn, this is gold. We can use this to turn the tables, but we need to act fast. She quickly formulated a plan. We'd present the evidence in court, aiming not only to secure the divorce in custody, but to expose Adam's criminal actions. On the day of the hearing, I felt a rush of nerves. Marcus squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. "You've got this, Evelyn." We entered the courtroom, and the sight of Adam and Melanie sitting confidently on their side made my blood boil. They had no idea what was coming. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Mary Stein, took her seat. "This is the case of Carter versus Carter. Are both parties present?" "Yes, Your Honor," Rachel said confidently, as Adam's lawyer echoed the same. Rachel took center stage. "Your Honor, we have irrefutable evidence that Mr. Carter and Ms. Jones have been committing financial fraud." Adam's smug expression faltered. Melanie's eyes widened. "What is this?" Adam blurted out, but was quickly silenced by his lawyer. Rachel presented the documents, and the judge reviewed them carefully. "This is highly incriminating, Mr. Carter. What do you have to say for yourself?" Adam's lawyer stammered, trying to formulate a defense, but it was clear they were cornered. Rachel didn't let up. "Your Honor, not only does this prove Mr. Carter's unethical behavior, but it also demonstrates why my client deserves full custody and a favorable divorce settlement." Adam finally spoke, his voice desperate. "Evelyn, this isn't what you think." "Save it, Adam," I cut him off, my voice steady. "You only care about yourself. This is about our child's future." The judge glanced between us, then back at the papers. After a tense pause, she spoke. "Given this new evidence, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. Mrs. Carter will receive significant alimony, full custody of the child, and Mr. Carter is to face legal consequences for his fraudulent activities." A wave of relief washed over me. Adam's face was a mask of shock and rage. Melanie looked ready to bolt. After the hearing, Marcus and I walked out of the courthouse. "You did amazing," he said, his pride evident. "We did it," I corrected, feeling lighter than I had in months. Back at Marcus's apartment, we celebrated quietly. This was a victory, but it was just the beginning. There was a sense of justice, of karma, finally catching up to Adam and Melanie. They had underestimated me, but now they knew. I was no longer the woman they thought they could break. When the judge's gavel hit the desk, the finality of it echoed in my mind. Adam's face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen before. Melanie stood next to him, whispering angrily. The courtroom slowly emptied, but Adam approached me, rage burning in his eyes. "You think you've won?" he hissed, stopping inches from my face. I stared back calmly. "I don't think, Adam. I know." "Don't be so sure," he spat. "You'll regret this." Just then, Marcus stepped forward. "She's done regretting things. You lost, Adam. Accept it." Adam snarled but turned away, pulling Melanie with him. As they stormed out, Marcus and I exchanged a relieved look. This part of the battle was over, but there was still rebuilding to do. Weeks went by, and I was settling into my new apartment. It was modest but mine. Marcus was a frequent visitor, always handy with a toolbox or comforting words. One evening, just after putting away groceries, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Melanie standing there, looking disheveled and desperate. "What do you want?" I asked, not bothering to hide my disdain. "I need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. "Please, Evelyn." I hesitated but stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." She stepped in, glancing around nervously. "Adam's falling apart, his business, everything. It's all crumbling." "Sounds like karma to me," I crossing my arms. "He's been blaming me," she continued, ignoring my comment, "saying it's my fault that I lured him into all this." I raised an eyebrow. "Maybe there's some truth there." "You don't understand," she pleaded. "He's lost it. He's threatening me now. I don't know what to do." I sighed. "You're reaping what you sowed. You both made your choices." "But I didn't think it would end up like this," she said, tears spilling. "I was wrong. Can't you see that?" I took a deep breath. "The damage is done, Melanie. You hurt me in ways you can't even begin to understand, but I won't help you. You're on your own." She nodded, defeated. I had to try." As she left, closing the door behind her, Marcus emerged from the hallway. "Everything all right?" "Melanie," I said simply. "She's scared. Adam's turned on her." Marcus shook his head. "Typical. He's always been like that, only loyal to himself." "I just want this chapter closed," I said, sinking into the couch. "And it will be," Marcus assured me. "You're almost through it, Evelyn, just a little more." That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. The storm of Adam and Melanie was losing its power over me. Months later, the full reckoning came. Adam's fraudulent activities were more extensive than we initially discovered. He faced significant legal consequences. Marcus and I watched the news together, seeing Adam led away in handcuffs, his once smug face drawn and defeated. "Justice," I murmured. "It's about time," Marcus said, his hand finding mine. We turned the TV off and sat in comfortable silence. "Evelyn," Marcus began, breaking the stillness, "there's something I've been wanting to tell you." I looked at him, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" His eyes held a tenderness I hadn't seen before. "I care about you more than I've let on. I've been falling for you all over again, watching you rise from all this." I was silent for a moment, absorbing his words. "Marcus, you've been my rock. I can't imagine getting through this without you." He squeezed my hand gently. "You don't have to imagine it. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." In that moment, I realized the future held more than just survival. It held hope and possibly love. Adam had not just underestimated my strength, he had underestimated what was possible for my future. We stayed like that, hand in hand, every demon from the past slowly losing its grip. I knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but I wasn't walking it alone. And for the first time, that thought didn't scare me. It empowered me. I looked down at my newborn daughter's tiny, perfect face, feeling an overwhelming sense of love and protection. The hospital room was quiet, filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle hum of machines. Marcus sat beside me, his eyes brimming with joy. "She's beautiful, Evelyn," he said, his voice filled with awe. "She is, isn't she?" I replied, tears of happiness pooling in my eyes. He reached out and gently touched her little hand. "What are you going to name her?" I had thought long and hard about this. Her name needed to signify strength and a new beginning. "Grace," I said softly. "Gracie, for short." Marcus smiled. "Gracie, I love it." Days later, we brought Gracie home to my new apartment, a place that now felt warm and filled with promise. The lightness in my heart contrasted sharply with the dark days I'd left behind. Marcus came over often, and his presence felt like comfort, like security. One evening, as we were settling Gracie down to sleep, Marcus turned to me, a serious expression on his face. "Eve, there's something I need to ask you." I nodded. "Go ahead." He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about Gracie. You know I love you, but I also want to do more than just support you. I want us to be a family." My heart raced. "Marcus, are you asking?" "Yes," he interrupted, a smile forming. "I'm asking if you'd consider taking our relationship to the next level, marriage." I was taken aback, but in the best way possible. "Marcus, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it?" he asked, his eyes hopeful. I nodded. "Yes, of course, but know that I care about you deeply." Life gradually found a rhythm. I managed to secure alimony and full custody, thanks to Rachel's expertise. Adam's disgrace had become public, and he was serving time for fraud. I kept tabs on him only because it was necessary for Gracie's legal future, but otherwise he was a closed chapter. One evening, as Marcus and I were sharing a quiet dinner while Gracie slept, he brought up a topic I hadn't expected. "Evelyn, have you thought about writing again?" Truth be told, I hadn't allowed myself that luxury for a while. "I've been preoccupied." "Understandable," Marcus said. "But you're an amazing writer. You could tell your story. It might help others in similar situations." His words planted a seed, and the idea started to take root. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. My journey, fraught with betrayal, pain, and ultimately triumph, could be a beacon for someone else navigating similar darkness. With Marcus's encouragement, I dusted off my laptop and started drafting. Late nights and moments snatched during Gracie's naps became my writing time. The words flowed, each sentence a cathartic release. Soon enough, my manuscript was complete. Marcus's tech connections helped me find a publisher. Months later, my book was on shelves, and the positive feedback was overwhelming. Messages from readers poured in, thanking me for sharing my story and giving them hope. One evening, after putting Gracie to bed, I sat with Marcus, watching the sunset from my apartment window. "You were right," I said, my voice soft. "Writing the book was the best thing I could have done." He smiled, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. "I never doubted you for a second." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the room, I realized something profound. Life would never be free of challenges, but it was also full of unexpected beauty and opportunities for redemption. I looked at Marcus, the man who had stood by me through the storm, and felt a sense of peace. The past had tried to break me, but it had only succeeded in making me stronger. In that quiet moment, watching the sun set on one chapter of my life and rise on another, I knew I had finally found something I never thought possible: true happiness. And this time, I wasn't letting go.